Alright, what I want to talk about is when, and I'm not sure how to word this, because I don't know if it's the reality or the not milk. And I've talked about the Black Mirror before, and how I think it's more of an entity, like, that reflects reality to us, and that it's attempting to wake people up with all the Mandela effects and the synchronicities. I don't think the creeps are causing that. I think it's the Black Mirror, Maya, the Void. That's what's causing these happenings, and it's attempting to wake people up, to jumpstart people's spiritual journey. That's the best way I can put it. And the question I want to pose to everybody, is, when the not milk takes a big bite of the shit sandwich and wakes people up in that way, is it the not milk or the Black Mirror that's doing that? That's the question I want to pose. At one point, did you notice the reality taking a big bite of the shit sandwich? And I'm going to give an example with a customer I had just a few hours ago, like maybe an hour ago. And pretty shocking. I'm about to tell you why. Because when he came in, wanted to fill a prescription, and the pharmacy's closed. It's a 24-hour store, but not a 24-hour pharmacy. It's been that way since the big CV incident in 2019 or 2020. Like the beginning of 2020, we stopped being a 24-hour pharmacy. We're just a 24-hour store, meaning overnight the pharmacy isn't open. So I had to explain that to him, and I said ever since the big CV thing happened, the 7-Eleven job application, 7-Eleven 2.0, that thing, the CV. And it's like, I explained that to him, and I was like, and I just kind of said it offhandedly. He understood. He wasn't upset or anything. He understood. He said he'd come back later, and he understood what I meant. And I said ever since COVID started, the pharmacies cut back on employees, and they've been understaffed since. And then I offhandedly say, at least that's what the excuse was. And it's like a light bulb went off in his head. Just the look on his face was just, he couldn't believe I said that. Only because he says something like, I don't remember the conversation word for word, but I'm just going to paraphrase. He basically says, "It's funny you say that," because and he started explaining what he does. He owns a business. He works on a farm, and I don't remember the specifics of what he was trying to do. But he started getting into this thing where he was saying the piping that he was using for a project. He had started the project right before the big CV thing, and I knew what he was going to start talking about right away. He's going to start talking about the prices, which we weren't talking about inflation. That wasn't part of the subject at all. So he is making connections. He said his piping used to cost $25 a foot or something like that. I don't know what kind of piping it was. It doesn't matter the specifics. And he said he got back into the project recently to go ahead and finish it because the CV thing really messed everything up in that sense. And then he said, well, now it's shot up to $80. And he said he was getting the impression that was the excuse. CV was the excuse. Inflation was the excuse. And I brought up the inflation thing to him. And he was just shocked that I said something like that, because apparently he's never heard, well, not apparently, he told me straight up, there is nobody else in his, I'm just going to say in his reality, in his world, his family, not a single person has said anything like that. And to me, that was shocking. And it shouldn't be shocking, right? Because the world's ran by these NPC types. And you can look at this dude and easily say NPC. You can look at me. If you met me in the wild, right? Let's say for instance, I'm playing the cashier, and you meet me, you would just assume I'm just an NPC type, because you're not going to get anything deep out of me when I'm just checking out your stuff. So this dude, when I said that offhandedly, it's like a light bulb went off. And he is like, this is a conservative state, so it's very obvious he's a conservative type, hardworking man. But let's say the Black Mirror is reflecting something back. It's showing him, because to me, going from $25 to $80 is taking a huge bite of the shit sandwich. And it's stuff like that that wakes people up. And to me, I think it's on purpose, not by the not milk, but by, and Matt likes to say it's the not milk, they have contracts and maybe they're breaking. And I don't know about that. Like, I really don't know about that, but I'm putting this out there. It's the Black Mirror itself attempting to wake people up. It's saying, look at me, there's something not correct with your reality bubble. And it's like, it's not malicious. It's just showing you, I'm taking this huge bite of the sandwich, and if you can't notice it, maybe the bite needs to be bigger. So that was his wake up call, and he's not a truther. He's a conservative, though. I can tell he's a conservative, but he maybe have some liberal opinions. That doesn't matter. And Matt McKinley has said that conservatism is the beginnings. It's kindergarten truther. First grade truther, conspiracy, right? That man is starting to figure out conspiracy. I'm gonna wait till these sirens pass. There it is. It's first grade truther, and you need to start somewhere. It's not a put down, because we all have to start at first grade. I started at first grade. I started noticing these things, well over a decade ago, and I didn't get directly into conspiracy that much. It was just kind of passing. It's like, I'd be like, oh, 7-Eleven, I'll look into that. It's kind of interesting. Where's the rubble? I don't know. Where is the rubble? That's weird. And that was like over a decade ago. So it's not like I got balls deep in conspiracy. So my awakening was very, very different into the truther thing. But it's like the Black Mirror is going to take bites of the shit sandwich in order to wake people up. And it's like, with me, for instance, I noticed that when the inflation thing started happening, our Coke products went from 3 for $12 to 3 for $18. And to me, it wasn't done increment by increment. It was done in a huge difference, like 12 to 18, right? That's big. You can't help but notice that. And I told my wife, I was like, look, that's here to stay, because the Coca-Cola company is like, we train these apes to pay 3 for $18, and if they pay for 3 for $18, we're just going to keep it that way. And we'll use inflation, we'll use the CV as an excuse. It's just an excuse. The gas prices, we'll use all that as an excuse. We're going to keep our prices high. But it wasn't just that. I think things like that happen as a wake-up call. Taking a bite of taking a big bite of the shit sandwich, as Matt McKinley has put it. And to me, it's the Black Mirror is doing that. And I'm really, really, I feel like I'm stuck on this Black Mirror thing, because ever since I did that presentation, I had the theory for a while. I've had that theory for like a year, and ever since I did that presentation, it's like, the more I kind of just think about it, and I'm not sitting here in a dark room intellectualizing it, right? I'm just letting it mull over a little bit, and the more I let it just kind of go through me and just kind of ponder it, the more it makes sense, because it doesn't seem malicious. Like, the reality itself doesn't seem malicious. It seems like it's just in a symbiotic relationship with us, and it wants to survive, but it doesn't want to hurt either. It doesn't want to, it's not a parasite. The not milk are the parasites. It wants real generator beings, real spiritual beings, to somehow keep this not milk in check in some way, and waking people up at maybe its only defense, where it has to reveal itself a little better. And maybe like drugs like ayahuasca and all that nonsense, that's all nonsense to me. I don't care about that stuff. You don't need that kind of drug to have an awakening, because I've had it twice now, and it didn't take a drug to induce it. It just took a realization. There was something in me that was telling me something was wrong with the world, or something wrong with my upbringing, and that's what woke me up. It was simple as that. So whatever this guy's journey is, I wish him the best. That's awesome that he at least sees on a kindergarten level that somebody sees through that bullshit. And that might be his journey as not necessarily a truther, right? Because I don't really like that word. To me, the word truther has got almost this communal context that I'm not a part of. Like, I don't go on forums and talk to other truthers. I like to I like to talk to people via YouTube comments, and yeah, that's a community. I get that, but the label truther is like, I don't know. It's just, I don't like it. It's just something that's not resonating with me, and I'm only using the word truther to simplify things, which would be just somebody who's on a journey to notice the bullshit. That's all that means to me. And if you have another definition of truther, that's fine. I'm not really going to debate you on it because it's not worth thinking about. It's not worth debating over. No, it's so funny because every time I'm thinking I'm going to take a break from making recordings, something like that happens that just blows me away. And I know it may seem a little mundane to people that happened, but to me that was just amazing. It amazes me that that man hasn't had anyone else in his life come to that conclusion, because he told me, he was like, "You're the only person I've ever met that said something like that." And he was like, "That's what I've been thinking this entire time, ever since the CV started. That that the CV thing was almost like an addiction and a pre-excuse to do things, to do malicious things, raising prices, stuff like that, because the prices were going up before the inflation thing happened this year." And this is why I had to share the story, because it amazes me that nobody, really, like, nobody in his life has said something like that. And this dude wasn't young or anything. Like, he was older than me. I'm 39. He looked like probably about 10 years older than me, so maybe he's almost 50. He's an older dude, like a fit guy. He's just a Caucasian, blonde-haired, he looked like a hard worker. That's the best way I could put it. He wasn't some just like schlub like me. So it's all kinds of people that get woke up, that get awakened to this kind of nonsense. And that's why it's getting to the point where I don't like using the word NPC, because you just never know when someone's gonna snap out of it. They graduate from being a Pinocchio to a real boy, a real seeker. That's the best way I can put it. I've talked about how the black mirror is a reflection of our senses, and it's like, and the Mandela effect is retrocausal. It's a retrocausal correction code. And I'm still considering that. I'm not on solid ground when it comes to that, only because I need to have an open mind. Then I said Mandela effect is retrocausal correction code, and I have to think, well, this man comes into the store, and I just happen to say something, and he has a reaction to it in that way, in a non-violent reaction too, like just like an eureka moment, like, oh my God, someone else has thought about this too. I'm not crazy. Like, he told me he thought he was crazy, and that's a shame. And I don't know his religious affiliation. I have to assume he's Christian, because this area is predominantly Christian, white Caucasian. They got that Irish. He looked Irish to me. He had like kind of blondish reddish hair, and they're usually Irish Catholic Christian types. So he's already had. I know, the stupid meme about Caucasians, white people don't have culture, and it's like, well, his culture, he's very obviously some form of Irish, dissension. It's very obvious that he's some form of Irish heritage, just by the way he looked. And he has culture. Like, the Irish got culture, man. They got it in spades. And to me, it's that, not just the religion, other things that I won't get into, but it's like, that Irish Catholic upbringing is going to aid him, even if he doesn't realize it. And it's so easy to dismiss it as just cultish rhetoric. But there's truth in all, there's always truth hidden in all religions. That's almost like a cult. Occult, OCC, occult, occult. And it's so easy to call, religious people just lunatics. And oh boy, if you start spouting truther stuff, if you start spouting conspiracy stuff along with truther stuff, and you're a Christian and you believe in God, wow, like you're beyond lunacy in some people's eyes. Like, and I run into people like that sometimes. That's why I've kind of learned to shut my mouth about it. Because when you first wake up, when you first wake up to the nonsense and you start spouting off, you find out really quick that reality bucks against you. And I don't know what it is about that. I've talked about the Black Mirror reality, but on the other hand, I'll say, or on the same hand, I'll say something along the lines of, when you come out to your family about these topics, reality will buck. There's something laced into reality that will buck against you. The Black Mirror doesn't like that for some reason, and I'm not sure why yet. But there's a big but in there. My wife is starting to repeat things that I've said, and she understands it a lot better than when I first started. And it used to piss her off. And to me, that's the appropriate reaction in a way. And I know that sounds crazy, but her reaction was normal. I think it's like that on purpose. And I'm starting to change my mind a little bit. Maybe I'm thinking that reality doesn't like that. How do I put this? The reality doesn't like you trying to wake others up for some reason. Maybe it's because it wants to do it in its own way. But here's the thing, though. My wife is repeating things that I've said about spirituality, not conspiracy stuff, but about witchcraft and brujeria, which is Spanish for witchcraft. Bruja is a witch. I've implied to her that not even implied, I've literally straight up told my mother-in-law and my wife, while they're in the room together, that they're probably witches. And not in a mean way. I'm saying y'all have some kind of witchcraft lineage or something. Because too many strange things happen to both of them in their reality bubbles that don't make sense. And I'm going to do a presentation sometime on manifestation. And I lost a lot of audio. Unfortunately, I lost not a lot, maybe like 10 minutes of audio because my microphone cut off. And that audio got lost. That's not important. But my wife is starting to repeat things to her mother about what I talk about on my channel, which is the spiritual stuff, the trauma that your parents, and that's the best way to get people to start waking up, in my opinion, is to talk about that spiritual trauma, which I love talking about with people. And it's not like I get some kind of high off it. It's so, how do I put it? So many people have issues with their parents, especially their fathers. They hate their fathers. Like the Sarah Marley video I posted with Jesse Lee Peterson. That's heartbreaking to hear how much she hated her father. And she nailed it when she said, I don't understand why so many people hate their fathers. She's waking up. Like, she is seeking, dude. I don't know about her now, but back then, at least we had a glimpse of somebody who was a seeker, because she's starting to ask questions. She's starting to go, why do people hate their fathers? It's a little weird. Everybody seems to hate their fathers. And that's all I really got to do to start getting the person to think. Because my wife is starting to repeat things to her mother about how that trauma goes. Because I've explained it to her so many times. And I'll tell my story. That's the key. I'll tell my story over and over and over again. Because I needed to drill it into her head that I went through it. I'm not making this up. I went through something. Sure, it's anecdotal, but this applies to all human beings. I'll tell my story, and I said, look, the little details may be specific to me personally, but this shit applies to everybody in the world. And I say, I don't care what race you are, I don't care your skin tone, I don't care if you're from Mars, you probably went through the same shit that I did. And my wife, believe me, my wife has gone through the same exact things that I have with my mother. And she can apply it to herself, and I know she does because she's repeating the same exact things back to her mother about the little mess, the familial mess that her sister and her kids go through because my aunt, I call her my aunt, she's like an aunt-in-law, I don't know what the proper term for that is, but my wife's aunt, my wife's aunt has her issues, like bad, like her side of the family it's like night and day. The two sisters, which would be my mother-in-law and her sister, like their families are like split in the middle. They get along fine, but the families are so much different than one another. One's super conservative, the other, they're conservative too, but I consider them more liberal, just in their thinking and just the way the kids turn out, the grandkids turn out. It's just like night and day. It's just amazing to me that she's repeating the same things I am. Something's getting through, and I don't know if the Black Mirror, let's say the Black Mirror is living in the present and it's thinking along with me, seeing what I do. And at first it wasn't happy with what I did, and it's like, okay, I guess we're gonna do it this way. I see your point. I don't know. And that's all I ever pray for, is to get through to people in that way, and not in a motherly way, like a smothering, but just in a making sense kind of way. That's all I ever hope for. And I don't know why. I haven't figured that out either. I don't know why I have this desire. It's just the way it is. Thank you so much for joining me, guys. Have a great day.